Hello everyone, and welcome to DevWave Diaries. Here, we dive into the latest web development trends and coding techniques. If you're passionate about tech and eager to learn, you're in the right place. Today I am going to show you how to create an eye-catching sliding button animation effect. First, create a div element with the class container. Inside this div, add a button element with the ID of btn and set its text to submit. This is all the HTML code we need for this animation. Now, let's dive into styling with CSS. We'll start by setting up the basic styles. First, add a CSS boilerplate to reset the default margins and paddings. Set margin, 0, padding, 0, and box sizing, border box. These settings ensure that elements are styled consistently across different browsers. Next, we'll focus on the HTML and body elements. Set their width and height to cover the entire viewport by applying width, 100%, and height, 100%. For the background, choose a deep, dark color like #081b29 to give a sleek, professional look. Finally, let's style the container element with the class name div. Set its width to 100% and its height to 100 dvh, which stands for 100% of the dynamic viewport height. To center the content within this container, use display, flex, along with justify content, center, and align items, center. This combination will perfectly center your content both horizontally and vertically. Let's move on to styling the button with the ID of btn. First, select the button using #btn in your CSS. Start by setting the padding to 1 rem on the top and bottom, and 2 rem on the left and right to give the button a comfortable size. Next, adjust the font settings, set the font size to 1.2 rem for a clear and readable text. Apply text transform, uppercase, to make the button text uppercase, and set font weight, 600, to give it a bold appearance. Set the background color to transparent, and use the hex code #00abf0 for the text color. Apply a border radius of 10 px to give the button rounded corners. Use a border with a width of 2 px, styled as solid, and also in the color #00abf0 to match the text. Now open the browser and let's check the button. Choose the sans serif font family for a clean, modern look. Set the cursor to pointer to indicate that the button is clickable. Finally, add a transition property with a duration of 0.5 seconds to ensure that any visual changes are smooth and gradual when interacting with the button. Now, let's enhance the button with a before pseudo element. Select the button using #btn, before. Set the content property to an empty string to create a placeholder for the pseudo element. Use position, absolute. Also we need to set the position for the button itself. Apply position, relative, to #btn. This ensures that any absolutely positioned elements, like the before pseudo element we just added, will be positioned relative to the button. Now, let's add other styles to the before pseudo element. Set its top and left properties to 0, and give it a width and height of 100% to cover the entire button. Apply a background color of red. When you open the browser, you'll see a red button. Next, adjust the z-index of the before element to -1, which places it behind the button. Set the z-index of the button itself to 1 to ensure it appears on top. Open the browser again, and you'll notice the red before element is now positioned behind the button. Finally, add overflow, hidden, to the button to ensure that any content overflowing its boundaries is hidden. Open the browser again, you can see the button properly with red background. Now, set the width of the before pseudo element to 0, and then open the browser. Inspect the button, and navigate to the before element. Use the keyboard's up arrow key to increase its width. You'll see a red color filling animation as the width expands. We'll use this technique to create the animation effect. Now, let's return to Visual Studio Code to continue working on the code. Next, let's add a hover effect to the before pseudo element. Use the selector #btn hover before to target the element when the button is hovered over. Set its width to 100% to make it expand fully on hover. Also, apply a transition property with a duration of 0.5 seconds to the before element to ensure the expansion is smooth and gradual. Now open the browser and hover the button, you can see a beautiful color fill effect. Now, change the background color of the before pseudo element to #00abf0. This will give it a vibrant blue color. Next, let's add a hover animation for the button itself. Use the selector #btn, hover and set the color to #081b29 to change the text color to a dark shade when the button is hovered over. Again open the browser and hover the button, you can see a beautiful color fill animation inside the button. Let's add one more button. Go to HTML file and copy-paste the previous button. Now, let's style the second button. Select it using nth-child, 2, to target the second button. Add a before pseudo element and set its content to an empty string, and position it absolute with top, 0 and left, 0, set its width to 100% and its height to 0. Apply a transition of 0.5 seconds for smooth changes. Set the background color to red, and use a z-index of -1 to place it behind the button. Again open the browser, you can see two buttons. Set the width 100%, you can see it fill with red color. Then add a gap between these two buttons, use gap 1 rem. Again set height 0 to the before element. Now, let's add a hover effect to the second button. Use the selector #btn, nth-child, to hover, before to target the before pseudo element of the second button when it is hovered over. Set its height to 100% to make it expand fully on hover. Now open the browser and hover over the second button to ensure it works correctly. Next, change the background color of the second button's before element to #00abf0. Now, when you hover over both buttons, you'll see a stunning color-filling animation. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful, please give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to stay updated with all our latest content. Your support helps us create more exciting and valuable videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode of DevWave Diaries.